RIMS is global. Discover why 10,000 of your peers in more than 60 countries are part of the world's largest risk management community. Visit rims.org/membership to find the best membership for you and your organization. Public registration is open for RISKWORLD 2026, which will be held May 3rd through the 6th in Philadelphia. Visit rims.org/RISKWORLD to register. Coming to you from RIMS headquarters in New York, this is RIMScast, the official podcast of the Risk and Insurance Management Society. I am Justin Smulison, Business Content Manager here at RIMS and your proud RIMScast host. This is episode 386. Our topic is board reporting and ERM, and we will be joined by Trisha Sqrow and Suzanne Christensen of the RIMS Strategic and Enterprise Risk Management Council. They co-authored a new executive report. We're going to talk all about it. But first, let's talk about virtual workshops, starting with the RIMS CRMP. The next RIMS CRMP exam prep course will be April 21st and 22nd, and then again June 9th and 10th. Links to registration are on this episode's notes. And we've got RIMS webinars coming up on April 16th. Zurich and World Travel Protection will present Navigating the New Global Risk Landscape, Lessons for Business Travelers in Unstable Times. On May 14th, our friends at Origami Risk will return with a new session, Future-Proofing Your Risk Program, Keeping Pace with Scale, Complexity, and Visibility. Register for webinars at rims.org/webinars and through the links on this episode's show notes. And folks, for more RIMS content, head over to YouTube and subscribe to @RIMS official channel. There you will find video podcasts, RIMScast Canada video podcasts, and other informative and entertaining content from RIMS. And head over to www.rmmagazine.com for the Q1 edition of the Azbee-Award-winning publication, RIMS Risk Management Magazine. We've got some more plugs coming up later. Let's get on with the show. Our guests today are Suzanne Christensen and Trisha Sqrow. And as members of the RIMS Strategic and Enterprise Risk Management Council, they co-authored the new RIMS Executive Report, Board Risk Reporting, How to Deliver Insights That Matter. Co-authored by Joe Pugh of the AARP and also a Strategic and Enterprise Risk Management Council member, the report provides practical insights and guidance to risk practitioners responsible for reporting to their organization's board of directors or overarching governance committees. The report provides guidance on aligning risk reporting with the board's role and expectations, the steps that should be taken to sustain the alignment over time, and how to ensure reporting provides the board with the appropriate level of detail. The link to the report is available on this episode's show notes. You can also visit the risk knowledge section of rims.org. And if you like what you read and you like what you hear today, be sure to hear Trisha and Joe at RISKWORLD on May 6th at 11:30 a.m. in room 119AB. They will extend the dialogue with the session From Risk Aware to Risk Savvy, Elevating Board Level Risk Reporting and Engagement. That will undoubtedly be a fantastic session. Let's talk about board reporting right now. Suzanne Christensen and Trisha Sqrow, welcome back to RIMScast. We are joined by two of my favorite people. They were carrying the torch for the Strategic and Enterprise Risk Management Council here at RIMS for years, and now they are rejoining us here on RIMScast. You've been with us before, together. Yeah. And it's a delight to welcome back Trisha Sqrow and Suzanne Christensen. Welcome back to RIMScast.
Thanks, Justin. Good to be here.
Yeah, thank you, Justin.
Sure thing. So we have a brand new RIMS executive report that the two of you co-authored with our good friend Joe Pugh, who is also on the Strategic and Enterprise Risk Management Council. Say that 5 times fast. It is called Board Risk Reporting, How to Deliver Insights That Matter. Now, this paper is available for a limited time exclusively for members, and then it will be open to the public. So there's a lot of great information in here. And just to kick things off, it is not a large paper. This is not your typical white paper that's 50 pages and has a ton of Venn diagrams and heat maps and stuff like that. You guys get right to it, and that's what we're going to do here today. So let's start at a high level. The research shows that while many risk professionals believe their reporting supports board decision-making, most boards are still asking for more information and deeper analysis. So they want more, they want less. It's confusing. What's behind the disconnect?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of elements of boards are becoming more interested. We're finding that more and more are interested in understanding the risk profile of the organization and what's being done and how leadership is managing risk. Just because we're living in such a complex world and complex time. There are so many risks right now out there that are not necessarily what we would consider internal, where I can just fix something. There are things like the geopolitical, the supply chain, the macroeconomic conditions, so many things that are out there that the board is saying, how do we look at this? How can we manage what we can manage? And how do we prepare for and respond to those things that we can't manage on the day-to-day, but that could come and hit us? Other elements are just, they're more interested. They have regulatory, concerns, regulatory requirements, potential liability, things of that nature.
Do they also have access to more? Oh, sorry. Do they also have just access to more information? Is there just so much more out there that they can just take in and then they don't know how to sift through it? Suzanne?
Well, and I think too, in addition, and Trisha's spot on about the complexity, and certainly, we've seen that sort of post our COVID world of the interconnectedness of risks and so forth and the unexpected, but the pace of change is just sort of, hang on to your seats right now, particularly with AI and other things coming in. So I think, boards serve a lot of different constituents and stakeholders, and they're feeling that pressure. And so it's not necessarily deeper analysis, but more insightful analysis that they're looking for. But what does that mean? What is insightful to a board? And I think that's what we really try to get into here, is how you figure that out.
And it's also safe to assume that each board is going to have a different definition of the word insightful, right?
Oh, absolutely. You got to meet, and one board can even change over time. The dynamic, they're sort of idiosyncratic in a lot of ways, because different board members bring different dynamics and expectations. So there's another point in our sort of paper here about keeping pace and not just assuming because you've got it at one time that it continues to be relevant. You got to keep up with it.
Yeah. Now, you make the point that effective board reporting isn't about what risk teams want to say. It's about what boards need to hear. And it kind of reminds me of being a little kid and saying what my parents want to hear, not necessarily all the good stuff or all the bad stuff. So how should risk leaders rethink the purpose of board reporting through that lens? And what are the best methods for telling them what they want to hear?
Well, let's break down that want and need for a second.
Yeah, sure.
Because there's the need that they know and they understand and they articulate and say, hey, tell us about this. But it's the things that they should also know in order to, be good board members. And so that takes a little bit of exploratory, because there are things that they might not know to ask. And so and that's where a risk professional really needs to lean in, because they have that sort of knowledge and that context to sort of say, you're asking for this, that's super important, we'll address that. But in addition, hey, here's some other things to be aware of. And you got to start with that mutual understanding. And there's a process to kind of go through that we sort of talk about. There are some tools and techniques.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think of it as like the risk practitioner. Obviously, they're the ones who have the most view of the risk profile of the organization and the closest and more into that day to day. Then you have, the board, who is probably thinking more really at what are our strategic goals and objectives, where are we wanting to go as an organization. They do want to know about the risk. And so it's really a matter of then working to connect those two. So, the risk practitioner bringing it, some of the need to hear might be, you almost sound like a naysayer. Hey, don't forget to think about X, Y, and Z. But if you can develop out that culture of discussion and openness to where, from a practitioner standpoint, you're saying, here's what could go wrong, but that's going to inhibit us from optimizing these opportunities. So let's mitigate this risk. You need to know that this might be a blind spot here so that we can achieve that goal and objective.
I love how you bring up the point about the strategic risks, because obviously boards weigh in on the strategy. It's one of their primary roles, is to make sure that the firm has the right strategy, they're executing appropriately. And because we always say, the biggest risk is becoming irrelevant to your constituents and your clients and so forth. And so there's risks to be taken there. So I think to that point, Trisha, when you think about the whole broad, high level, what maybe call key risks in an organization, they're not all equal, with the board. And so there's a lot more time that gets spent on the strategic side and the strategic risk, but you can't forget sort of the operating risks and the other things, although you can handle those in a more summarized, hey, here's some things to look at. If it's not flashing, yellow, red, orange at us, we've got that covered. Let's spend more time over here. So we talk a little bit about balance and making sure that it's comprehensive, but it doesn't mean one size fits all there in terms of the level of depth and level of conversation.
Yeah, definitely.
Excellent. Now, one of the core recommendations in the paper is to build alignment with executive management before even engaging the board. Obviously, that step is critical, but what tends to break down when that alignment isn't there?
Yeah, you'll end up with sort of a modern day Babylon in some ways, and you don't end up with the support from the key risk owners. And so if those that really own it, and particularly on the strategic side, they've got to be the voice, because the owners of the risk are the decision makers. And first, that's management, executive management with strategy. And so it has to be their story, and they have to be bought in. So it becomes a really important role of the risk practitioner to be the facilitator there and to create that alignment so that those conversations can be robust and open and transparent to get to the right level.
Yeah.
So when did either of you use that step in your own work or career? Because Trisha, I met you when you were at DFW Airport, and we had good conversations about that. Fill us in on how you're able to build alignment.
Yeah. So I think of it as the ELT, the executive leadership team and such, they're really kind of that liaison and that connection to the board. Most risk practitioners, most ERM, even if you're at a director, VP, chief risk officer type level, may not be in all of those board meetings and may not be interacting on a regular basis. However, those executive leaders probably are. So I think of it as a couple of ways. They can help bridge that gap because they know the relationships, have the relationships, know the personalities, understand how the board likes to receive information to help the risk practitioner, develop reports in that way. And then also just potentially opening up the line of communication more. It in my previous life and in DFW and others, we really did that through just the structure of the enterprise risk management program, having the risk council or an enterprise risk committee that reports periodically to that executive leadership team, and coordinating with them, having those champions there that can, have the information and go forth with it. And a lot of what would happen there was, they were incorporating some of this risk information within their reports that they were giving to the board. So here are initiatives we're undertaking, and this is kind of, what we're seeing with it. So it was kind of just an organic incorporation there. Now, that was a few years ago. So they've, obviously continued to evolve their program beyond that. So, but we see that with clients as well.
Yeah.
But I think what's interesting about, sort of the paper and so forth is, while you can do that real time in the board sessions, the regular meetings and so forth with the regular cadence, I think a best practice and our ideal way is to spend a little bit of prep time, a little pre-time to kind of get some baseline knowledge and some level setting across so that when you go into those meetings, those conversations can be a lot richer. You're not educating, you're actually getting to the meat of, hey, here's something, here's what we really want to focus on. Here's the really important things. Let's do a deep dive on that. As opposed to, hey, let's give you all the background. Let's make sure, does that make sense kind of thing. So there are some different methods for doing that depending on the organization and their sort of aptitude and appetite. But if you can do it in a pre-setting, sort of a pre-educational, pre-conversation, to your point, Justin, starting with the executive leadership so that they're part of that conversation and helping to drive that is ideal.
Let's talk about some upcoming RIMS events, starting with RISKWORLD. RISKWORLD 2026 will be held May 3rd through the 6th in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. RISKWORLD attracts more than 10,000 risk professionals from across the globe. It's time to connect, cultivate, and collaborate with them. Public registration is open and booth sales are still available. Links are on this episode's show notes, and be sure to check out rims.org for more information. We will kick off day one with a conversation with Adam Grant. He is an organizational psychologist, best-selling author, and leading influential management thinker. And the excitement continues with the announcement of the closing keynote. NFL Hall of Famer, Super Bowl champion, Emmy-winning broadcaster, and entrepreneur, Michael Strahan. He will be on the main stage on May 6th. I'm super stoked. So if you're still on the fence, this is the time to smash that register button and hear from one of the all-time greats. And the RIMS Western Regional Conference will be held October 4th through the 7th in Seattle, Washington. Registration is open, and you can also submit a session. Visit rimswesternregional.com and the link on this episode's show notes for more information. We will have more plugs later. And now let's return to our interview with Suzanne Christensen and Trisha Sqrow. We are back with Trisha Sqrow and Suzanne Christensen, and I know you both for a long time, so I feel comfortable asking this question because I'm a schmoozer, and I was wondering if there's a difference between schmoozing and initiating dialogues and conversation and building relationships when it comes to risk management.
Well, so look, you want to exude some confidence in what you're doing. There's a fine line there with a board, right? You want to relay that, hey, we're on top of this. We want your input and so forth. But at the same time, we want to be open because we can't be in control of everything and something could go bump. And we don't want to sort of look like we're so buttoned up that when something goes bump, they're going to say, hey, I thought you had that covered. So it's really a fine line, isn't it?
Totally. Yeah. And I think the fine line also, I think it is very important to build those relationships as you're able to, so that you have that direct understanding and knowledge of the, primary stakeholders you're working with. Also, it's important to have those relationships so that you've got some of that just, understanding and communication and can, provide those good, insightful and tidbits and discussions better. But also that fine line of the board maintaining oversight and not getting down into the management level. So
yeah, but at the end,
no,
you're exactly right. And that, I kind of thought when you were sort of describing that too, there's some parallels with good reputational risk management as well. Yeah. Really establishing that credibility up front and that confidence. But at the same time, as you're not so confident that we're going to prevent everything from happening and something really big could happen. Yeah. And by the way, that's just a test for needing a really good business, crisis plan. And to which the board could sometimes be involved, in a crisis, and they have to, lean in and so forth.
We're getting so many good tips, not just about board reporting, but also professional conduct, which is nice and refreshing here on RIMScast. So let's jump right back into the board reporting paper. You describe a goal of helping boards evolve from being risk informed to being truly risk savvy. What does that transformation look like in practice? Is it like a butterfly cocooning, and how does better reporting enable it?
Yeah. So I think we've touched upon some of it because we've talked about this process of first the educational, helping the board understand the organization and the key risks and so forth. Yeah. To that engagement, to get them actively engaged, to that so that they're asking better questions and starting to leverage that knowledge so that they can then make better decisions, right? So that's kind of the evolution that you're working on. As we mentioned, it's ideal if you can do some of that educational work up front and you don't have to do it real time. Not everybody has that advantage, but if you can kind of drive for that, that's, that really does help to get more quickly to that, risk savvy, better decision making piece. But Trisha, I know you have some thoughts in terms of what kind of content and so forth goes into that as well.
Yeah. Yeah. And when I think of risk informed versus risk savvy, what comes to mind is, and not to, take this back to school, but think about when in school or when you're learning anything, even in your career now, you have that basic level and you're like, okay, I know the nuts and bolts of this, but that becoming risk savvy is, okay, how does this all integrate together? How do we start seeing what risks interrelate or are interconnected? How do we see how all of the external factors that we're facing as a world could impact those strategic goals and initiatives and impact those risks? So that's where I really think it comes together with more that correlation and that bigger picture with it, which is where that you can then get to some of the, hey, we need to mitigate this, or we need to plan and prepare and think through just our overarching, organizational resiliency. So I think that's where the risk practitioner, in terms of what are they reporting, what are they bringing to the table, not just, oh, here's our list of risks, but, or, here's a couple mitigation plans, but really, here's what we're seeing. Here's how this could impact this, Here's, the systemic issues, and really talking then, what are we doing from that larger perspective?
I think a really important point, though, about the risk savvy, and Trisha, I've heard you talk about this, is that, you're not trying to be backward looking. You're trying to have foresight, look around the corner, what's ahead of us, because as we charge forward, how can we be more nimble? How can we be better at adapting to the new environment and managing those risks in real time? And so, I think all that helps to kind of build that sort of foresight and ability to kind of peer and sort of think about, hey, what could go awry, or what new opportunity do we need to take to achieve our goals is a really important point about the risk savvy.
Yeah, definitely. So,
all right. Now, in the paper, there's a lot about cadence, depth, and even who should receive what information. Yeah. Where do, in your opinion, most organizations get board reporting wrong, or where do they commonly get it wrong?
Yeah. So on some level, it's just not happening. It's happening more, and it's more regular. But I mean, on some level, there's still an element of a lot of organizations just aren't, or it's just kind
there's
of
no cadence.
I said, zero cadence. Also see some organizations that are, reporting almost quarterly, which that can get into a challenge because you almost get to that level. And I think I mentioned earlier of, is the board then providing oversight, or are they providing management? Their role is oversight. Executive leadership team, risk, the organization provides the management. And then I think also, really considering what, in terms of how much information, what you're reporting, insights beat volume. We talked like, how do you have a rich conversation and rich information, but for what are the real insights here that you need them to know? And then, from that, we talked about cadence, who should get what, almost determining, executive leadership team should get this amount of information. Probably, if you report to a board committee, audit compliance, they might get a different level of information. The full board might get a very, very high level information. So kind of considering and determining what that looks like. And that's very organization specific, really.
What I like to think about as a filter on information overload and so forth, there's a bit of, if you can get some pre-read out there so that you can really just have a conversation, that's ideal. Yeah. But in terms of that sort of overload and, what's most important, I like to think about what decisions do they need to make? What true decisions do they need to make, and what information will they need to have in hand to make those decisions? So the decisions that are being made are different based on the groups, as you were describing, Trisha, and that's a good lens to think about. If it's not just nice to have information. And so, just another lens to say, hey, if it's a strategic decisions, they're going to need this. If it's hey, we're thinking about some kind of new operational initiative, what do they need to know? That kind of thing.
We will take one more quick break. I want to tell you about the openings and the deadlines for various Spencer Educational Foundation grants. The Risk Manager on Campus application period will open April 1st, 2026, and it will close on June 30th. Grant awardees, colleges and universities, are typically notified in September. Now let's talk about course development grants. The application deadline for interval number 2 will be on June 15th, 2026, and award notifications will be sent out in late July. General grants will open on May 1st, and the application deadline is July 30th. And internship grant applications open on August 15th and close on October 15th. Links to each of these grants are on this episode's show notes. And of course, you can visit spencered.org for more information. And now let's conclude our interview with Suzanne Christensen and Trisha Sqrow. Years back, I was a reporter for the New York Law Journal, and I was covering commercial real estate transactions. It was a pretty cool job. And something was happening after the housing crisis where law firms were then right-sizing their space, right? So when I hear right size, I'm thinking of it in terms of physical space where maybe you don't need all those extra storage rooms because you're going to digitize all your documents and then you can, right size your space and sublet all that stuff out or use it for something else. So in terms of reporting, what does right sized look like?
Well, as you're giving us that example of your early career, what was going through my mind is there were a set of objectives behind that. There was a set of goals or objectives. They were looking to, cut down costs. Maybe they were looking to, just allow more collaboration in certain ways. So what were those objectives? So if you get to the objectives of that can allow you then to think about, okay, how do you right size for those objectives? Going back to that sort of, what do they need to know to meet those objectives and make those decisions?
Yeah, I think very well said, Suzanne. And then it just kind of goes back to the understanding the audience, understanding what they like to see, and really getting to that, here are things that we need decisions on, or we need your oversight or your thought process on. So.
All right. So any other words of wisdom before we let you go? We know that Trisha has 2 sessions, by the way, on Wednesday, May 6th. She's got, the first one is with her old friend from DFW, Katrina Gilbert we know her from the DFW chapter, of course, and that's called Kickoff to Resilience, a case study in risk management strategies for major event planning. I know you know a lot about that. That's from 10:15 to 11:15. And then 15 minutes later, you're not going too far. You're going to be presenting From Risk Aware to Risk Savvy, Elevating Board Level Risk Reporting and Engagement with co-author Joe Pugh from AARP, who I know you both hold in high esteem. So anything else that you want to, now that I've done the plugs, anything else that you want to say and leave the audience with?
I would say that I think some people are going to say, hey, I understand that point about really on the decisions that they're making and their objectives and so forth. But there's a little bit of baseline board responsibility just to know that the overall program itself is operating as it should, and that it's bubbling up information to the board that should be bubbled up, and that they're getting that sort of exception reporting, and that they've got confidence that it's coming their way. It's not haphazard or just the flavor of the day. And so there is a little bit of time that has to be spent, and we talk about this in a balanced way, about the program itself and how they can have confidence in it. It doesn't have to be a long, story and so forth. It can be, hey, here's what we're focused on. Here's how we know we're good. Maybe we've done a benchmark. Maybe we've done a study. Here's how we know that we keep it current. But there has to be a little bit of time spent on that too.
Yeah. And I think ultimately you want to enable informed oversight. You want to think through what they would need so that they can provide oversight to you. Forward thinking, looking at not only what's happening now, but what are those potential emerging risks? What are we watching for? How are we preparing for those things? And then just, really working to engage them as you go forward. So,
and getting feedback on an ongoing basis. It's helpful to do sort of annual surveys and so forth, but it's also just real time. Hey, is this working? Does this make sense? Are you getting what you need? Is there just getting that feedback? And you can tell based on the engagement and the level of discussion and the level of questions. They should be asking insightful questions. Hey, I'm really glad you asked that, because it gives you an opportunity then to tell a deeper story there, because they're obviously interested in it. So, but it's not a one and done.
All right. So before we let you go, Trisha, I did want to ask, because it's pretty cool that you're doing one session right after the other. And for some folks that might be intimidating. That's just the way that the cookie crumbles for them, because just the way that the agenda plans out. But are you comfortable doing something like that, where you're going from one session to the next with little time in between?
Yeah. Well, first of all, it's an honor to be able to speak at RISKWORLD or any RIMS event or anywhere. So first and foremost, thank you to the RIMS team and the SERMC and others across the various committees that's, selected sessions and such. So, and honestly, I'm just really excited to have the opportunity to do both.
Yeah.
The large event planning, it's going to focus on, what DFW Airport has done to prepare for the FIFA World Cup. The Dallas-Fort Worth area has the most matches of any city. And so, so considering what it looks like to apply enterprise risk management to something, of this magnitude and scale. So Katrina will do a bit of a case study. I'll kind of be talking about some of the higher level issues. And then going to the board reporting. So we're thrilled that this paper has been published and that we get to showcase it. So I'm good with it. I'm excited. I understand my commute is next door, so that really helps. That was my biggest. When I found out they were 15 minutes apart, I was like, oh man, where am I going?
You might get lost.
Right.
Yeah.
But it's next door, so I should have some time. So it's just great. I'm excited for it.
Excellent. Well, we appreciate both of you for all the contributions you've made to RIMS through the years. And I look forward to seeing you at RISKWORLD. And thank you again for being such wonderful champions of the Strategic and Enterprise Risk Management Council here at RIMS. Thank you so much.
Hey, thanks, Justin, for being such a great host. We appreciate it.
Thank you, Justin. Thanks, Suzanne.
Take care.
Special thanks again to Trisha Sqrow and Suzanne Christensen for joining us here on RIMScast. Remember to check out the new RIMS Executive Report, Board Risk Reporting, How to Deliver Insights That Matter. The link is on this episode's show notes. You can also visit rims.org/risk-knowledge. The dialogue about board reporting and this executive report will be extended at RISKWORLD on May 6th. Trisha and her other co-author, Joe Pugh of the AARP, will be leading the session From Risk-Aware to Risk-Savvy, Elevating Board-Level Risk Reporting and Engagement. That will be held in room 119AB. Now, we're jumping a bit here, but prior to that session, Trisha will be co-presenting the session Kickoff to Resilience, a case study in risk management strategies for major event planning, and that will be in room 118BC with her former DFW International Airport colleague, Katrina Gilbert. So if you haven't done so already, be sure to register for RISKWORLD at rims.org/riskworld. And now I want to speak about a topic near and dear to my heart, sponsorships. You can sponsor a RIMScast episode either on our publicly facing weekly show, that's this show, or with a dedicated episode. RIMScast has produced special episodes for JB Boda, The Hartford, Alliant, Zurich, Highwire, AXA XL, Prudent Insurance Brokers, High Trust, and Aon. Links to sponsored episodes are on our show notes. RIMScast has a global audience comprised of risk and insurance professionals, legal professionals, students, business leaders, C-suite executives, and more. Let's collaborate and help you reach them. Contact pd@rims.org for more information. Let's talk about RIMS membership, folks. Become a RIMS member and get access to the tools, thought leadership, and network you need to succeed. Visit rims.org/membership or email membershipdept@rims.org for more information. And let's also talk about Risk Knowledge. This is the RIMS searchable content library that provides relevant information for today's risk professionals. Available materials include RIMS executive reports, survey findings, contributed articles, industry research, benchmarking data, and more. For the best reporting on the profession of risk management, check out Risk Management Magazine. This is the Society's official quarterly digital publication. It is written and published by the best minds in risk management. My name is Justin Smulison, Business Content Manager here at RIMS. Please remember to subscribe to RIMScast on your favorite podcasting app. Email us at content@rims.org. Practice good risk management, stay safe, and thank you again for your continued support.